The topic of friendships. As you grow, you realize that you need friends. And, the younger years, I would say it's probably easier because you're in school, there's people around you, you have family, so you have your cousins. It's, if you're in church, you have friends. That doesn't necessarily mean that those friends were great friends, but nevertheless, you had people around you that you would call your friends. And then you get older and you really start to be intentional about your friends. And you kind of become friends because you have things in common, whether it's culturally, your personal interests, whatever it may be. You kind of then choose your friends. You get to an age where you can choose your friends. And even at that young age, like even in high school, which I think is where you really begin to form friendships, of an age that is, you kind of know who you are at that time. You don't really know who you are, but you know who you are at that time, and it works for you. Um, and then you then go to higher education, whether that be college, university, or if not, you go straight to work, and you begin to form relationships with people around you in your workplace, and you start to know yourself more, learn more about who you are, what you value, what you want in a friend, the type of friend you are, X, Y, and Z. And then you get to adult years. And, you know, just because you reach a pinnacle moment, you hit your 30s and you think, oh my gosh, I'm an adult, I'm old. Which is what a lot of us 30-year-olds were like when we were turning 30, and now we're turning 40 and we're like, oh, so excited. But you get to that point and you already have your core friendship group by that point. And that's not to say that you won't make more friends, of course. You move through different professional establishments and you make friends, or you go out and you meet people. It happens. You're in a relationship and you are friends with your partner's friends, all of that. But I think it's really interesting to understand what a friendship should be, the type of friendships you currently have, and how to kind of seek out what is working for you and what isn't, and to walk away, and not to hold so much emphasis on she's my friend, I've been friends with her for 20 years and this, that, and the other. That doesn't mean a single thing. I don't care how long you've known someone. That doesn't mean that they are a friend just because they've been in your life for this long. They could be your biggest hater. But there obviously are friendships that have sustained through times, through ages, through obstacles, through struggles, through pains, through joys. And you get to that point where you're like, this is it. This is my person. These are my people. And that's fantastic if you have that. This topic came out of, I guess, me thinking about my friendship circles over the course of my life. And, I've spoken about my first experience with girls as friends, and how traumatizing some of those things were. And I can break down this, is it a spy or an unpaid actor, through the course of my life, and really I have come to realize who is actually my friend and who is just there to be there, and who is there because they don't really like me, really, but they think they do. But that's not to say that the people that I have discovered that really aren't necessarily the type of friend that I want or need in my life, that doesn't mean that they haven't tried to be a friend to the best of their ability. We all have our own standards and our own expectations, and I think a lot of the time we can put so much pressure on human beings, especially our friends, and expect the world from them, and expect them to go above and beyond and to stop their lives. And they have, or they do, but we expect it so much so that when they pull back for whatever reason, you take it personally. And then there's this resentment that starts to build up. But you don't hold that same energy for your partner who's doing you wrong left, right, and centre, but you're giving them chance after chance after chance, but you're ready to disregard your friends. So I'm very aware that although I have been able to understand the people in my life and know what they are there for, why they are there, and who I've had to step away from, it doesn't mean that the love isn't there. It doesn't mean that I believe that it has all been malicious. Absolutely not. I think if I really sat here and said, you know, the people that I worked out aren't really my friends was because they were haters or jealous. No, get over yourself. It's not. It's just they are living at their own standard, and that standard doesn't work for me because that's not the standard I give. But it took me a long time, a very, very, very long time, to understand the type of people I need and want in my life, and the type of people I am happy to give everything to because of who I am and because of who they are. I've spoken about these girls before, but I have to go back because I don't know whether... No, this is a spy. She's a spy. She was a spy at the time. I couldn't have been older than 12. Couldn't have been. And I say this because I had posters up in my room of like B2K, J-Boog specifically, because I really loved him. So I imagine that I was definitely a young teenager, maybe 13, a young teenager. I don't know how old I was. My memory is awful. And I had some friends come round, friends that I'd known all my life, and they came with a cousin that I'd recently met, but, you know, she's family. And I remember it was another one of those times where, like, this cousin who was older than us decided again that I just wasn't someone to be liked for whatever reason. And I didn't understand, and I got really upset, and it was in my own house. I remember being in my room, it was in my own house, and I remember just getting really angry and ripping down one of my posters and ripping them up. I don't know, attention seeking. I don't know what I did that for, but I guess it was just me letting out my anger. And then I started to cry. It wasn't blubbering, but it was like, okay, I'm really feeling this. And my friend, and I, you know, I don't hold any resentment against these friends because we were so young and we were all trying to navigate our teenage lives. So absolutely, I love them to death now. But at the time, it was like, she was my friend because she came up to me, she put her arm around me, she was like, Marina, why did you do that? You loved that poster, oh my gosh, and comforting me. But her cousin was a few steps behind, and I was in my room, and I don't know if I saw her reflection or I heard her like turn and be like, I'm only joking. I'm not actually. I'm whispering like I'm not talking to a camera. Sorry. Basically, she whispered, "Oh, I'm only joking." Like basically to say, "Oh, I'm not her friend. I'm in her house. I don't know what to do." It was that type of vibe. And I was like, I don't actually remember how I responded to that, but I definitely was over it. I definitely stopped crying, and I just thought, what? And I think it was from that moment that my tough skin really kicked in, and I was like, no. So that happened, and again, when you experience things that really affect you, they stay with you. Like I remember that clearly. There are a few bits of it that maybe I've suppressed, maybe that I don't know. But I remember that incident very clearly, and I remember that I was really sad, but I definitely toughened up after that. And I don't actually think I may have been in middle school at that point, because when I went to high school, I made so many friends and we were all so very close. We were all very much alike. And I loved my friends in high school, and we were so close. We stuck together. Even when we bunked off school, we did it together, which was so stupid. Got caught, of course. But we did everything together, and there were a couple of friends that I was so close with. We would write letters to. We all enjoyed like writing in our journals and writing letters. We would write letters to each other when we were feeling down or when we just wanted to tell someone something. It was friendships that I held in high regard, and I think that also was this was like friendships that I've never experienced before because of what I was used to. So I definitely loved my friends in high school. And to this day, I would say that obviously we were young and, you know, I mean, we were just trying to do the best we could with what we had. They were true friends in that moment. And although I'm not friends with any of them now, not in a bad way, obviously, if I saw them, I'd be, oh my gosh, it would be a good catch up. There's no animosity or anything like that. We never fell out. We just drifted apart. And although that is the case, they were some of my best years with friends. And then you move into college, and the first lot of people that I met in college, again, really close with, best friends. There are a couple people that were just really, I'm going to say evil. At the time, I believe that they're reformed now, but at the time they were evil. And I remember, so that first incident, I would say that that friend was a spy. She didn't, she was there to pretend and there to keep an eye on things, but she wasn't actually my friend in that moment. Then you kind of jump to many, many years later when I'm in college, because my high school years are really good years. Jump to college, and there was one particular friend who I was really, really close with. Again, we were both writers, and we would write letters and poetry, and we would connect on an intellectual level. And I genuinely loved her, and I thought she loved me the same. Until an incident when we did something that we shouldn't have done. Yes, she was the ringleader and she went full force with it. But the problem was that I still engaged with it. So basically what it was, what we stole some stuff from a shop, and the security guard caught us at the end before we left. And we were young, so we at the time she had her nieces with her, so she used her buggy, and I just took a couple bits. And when we had to call our guardians, I did not call my mum. This is the first time she'll be hearing of this, so I'm sorry to you. I called my youth worker of my church at the time, and she came down. And my friend had told her family that it was all me, and she did nothing. Because she had her nieces with her, that's why she did it. So she, it's like, well, how could you do that with your niece, kind of thing. So she just put it all on me, and I took it, and they hated me after that. And that's when our friendship just deteriorated. I remember my youth worker at the time was like, that's not your friend. Look at this. And that was the first time I've got a real wake-up call. In years that I thought I was an adult, I of course was not, but I thought I was an adult. I was like 17. And I realized that, wow, because I would never have done that. Like I took responsibility for the things I did, but I never would have put it on my friend ever. We were both in the wrong. So yeah, I don't know what she was, but in that moment, she wasn't a friend. But that was just her character. It wasn't a personal attack on me. And I recognized that it wasn't that she hated me or anything. She was just selfish. And it was her character at the time. Again, I believe that this person is reformed, so thank God. But at the time, it was what it was. Now, you get older. And my longest relation, I have one friend that I've been friends with since school, that I'm still friends with today. And, love her to bits. And she's always been a great friend. She's a great person. And I'm glad that she's in my life. And then I have my cousin who we've been in each other's lives, obviously, for forever. She's a year older than me. She's my best friend, and she has remained consistent in who she is. We are very similar. Doesn't always work well because we never, when we need something or need someone, we tend to just go into ourselves and not kind of pour out until after the fact. But nevertheless, she's a fantastic friend. So I have, and there are a few other people that I have that are friends and have sustained who they are and have remained true to what they have presented to me. Yes, we develop and we change and we evolve, and there's of course been incidences where we weren't the best friends to each other, but we've grown and we've worked it out. But I would say getting older and hitting your 30s and having friends, a lot of my friends I've had since college, so it's still been a good 20 years since I've known them. And I think what's the hardest thing about having friends that long is then getting to a point where you are an adult and then you start to see things and question things and be like, hold on a minute, are you actually my friend? Has this whole thing been a lie? And again, I have to recognize that everyone is living their own lives. Everyone has their own battles. Everyone is getting on with the things that they need to get on with. Everyone has relationships, families now, whatever. My problem is not that. My problem is not circumstantial. It's not, you're in this scenario and because of what you've been dealt with, things are different. It's not that. It's the character that I haven't seen. And the reason why I haven't been able to see the character flaws is because we were always just having a good time. And I have always been a friend that I would say I'm there for you. Like when you need me, when you're going through it, I'm there. And I'm also there for the good times. And that's just friendship, right? I never ever really thought about it, but I've always been a friend to show up when needed. And I am very practical and I like to help in a very practical way, but I can also deal with the emotions that others have and manage it, I think, quite well. And my problem is I have always been a good friend because I've experienced what it is like to be treated in a way that I do not like. That is not to say that I have been the perfect friend or I haven't made mistakes, because I have. But even in those mistakes, even in certain things that I could have done differently and done better, first and foremost, there was never any malicious intent. That doesn't always matter though. Like if you do something wrong and you hurt someone, doesn't really matter whether you were trying to be malicious or not. But I always could take accountability. I could always sit back and be like, I would always question myself. So when I would get a response from a friend that I wasn't too sure on, or someone treated me in a way that I didn't understand, I would look at myself first and foremost and be like, why am I being treated like this? What have I done? And I will admit that I have been very defensive in the past, extremely defensive, and that has changed. But I believe that that has only changed because of the grace of God, because I see the world completely differently now. I see people completely differently now. So that's why that has changed. But for a long time, I would say I was very defensive and quick to, I guess, defend myself because I never thought I did anything wrong. And I remember one incident a few years ago with one of my closest friends, and I did something. It was wrong because I didn't tell her the truth when she asked. And that again had nothing to do with her. It was to do with me and me being selfish because I was in a relationship and something happened and I was like, oh my gosh, how is my boyfriend going to see me? I don't know why this happened. And once I had dealt with my boyfriend and he was fine and he understood, I was like, okay, now I can tell her. But I understand why it looked snaky. But I took it. I totally understood it. But I think in that moment, I was like, but you know my character and you know that I would never do anything other than this. And then it made me question, do you actually know me then? Do you actually value me? Because I understand your irritation or disappointment initially, but I would think that you would know me well enough to know that, okay, there must be a reason to this. Anyway, that was that. But that was one time I can say, not recently, but in my 30s, that I did something that I shouldn't have. I should have been more mature about the situation. I should have dealt with it better, but I genuinely didn't know how to deal with it at the time. And as you get older, your tolerance goes like this. Well, for me anyway. So getting to a place in life where I'm genuinely at peace and stable. I'm not really here for the mix up and the drama. And if you are a certain way, I don't care if that is just you. If it is negative and it affects me and affects the people around me, it doesn't need to be anywhere near me. But there was one incident, and I've got past this and we are good friends. But there was one incident that happened in my 30s. And again, it's like this person didn't know the person I was. It was like you were questioning my integrity. And I gave you no reason to do that. And it actually really hurt me. It was less anger and it was hurt. And it was like, I can't believe that this is even a thing. And I remember talking to so many different people, asking them their opinion. They were like, I don't know about this friend. And I'm a forgiving person. I wasn't, but I am a forgiving person. And I realize also that not everything that happens to you is about you. And sometimes people are projecting. Sometimes people are going through things in their own life and they need to get out their anger and frustration in some way. And when little things happen, if you're there and you're in the firing line, then so be it. And sometimes people genuinely just they feel a way about something. Whether you understand it or not, they are entitled to feel that way. But I also have to remember that feelings are not always facts. They're rarely facts. Feelings are just feelings. You may feel this person did you wrong. Is it a fact though? What happened? Like, let's unpack. And it's taken me so long to be able to be comfortable to just talk about my friendships, because in all honesty, there's been so many people in my life that have been in my life for so long, and when I look at it now, I realize that they were never really my friend. Like, the definition of a friend is, in the Oxford Dictionary, I believe, is basically, now don't quote me on this exactly, but it's mutual affection between two people. Yeah, basically what you give, you're getting back. And for me, again, I feel like with some of my friends, I have always given too much. And I say too much because it drained me, and it drained me because I was never being poured back into. And again, there's instances where it was my fault that I wasn't being poured into because I wasn't very forthcoming with what I was going through, but that came down to lack of trust. I didn't trust people. I still have an issue with trust, and I'm working through it and working on it. But, if you show me who you are, I'm going to believe you. And it's not always that I've witnessed or I've experienced firsthand someone that is, not trustworthy. I have watched them be a friend to friends, but not be a friend. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and think that I'm so special that you will never do that to me, because that's just ignorant. So I'm very weary, which is why the trust issue is there. So when we break down, is it a friend? Is it a spy? Is it an unpaid extra? I have many experiences of all three. I've had some amazing friends. I have some amazing friends, and they will be my friends forever. And that doesn't mean talking every day and seeing each other all the time. We know what that means as adults. But the spies, you need to be careful of the spies, because I think they're the most dangerous, because they act like your friend. You confide in them, they confide in you. But there's some envy that's sitting deep in their gut. And sometimes it's not even really about you, it's just that they're so unhappy in their lives that they kind of want people to be on the same level as them. But you don't see it because they're doing all the things they need to do. They're showing up for you in the moments when you need them the most, normally because that makes them feel good. They're out with you having a good time. They celebrate, your birthdays and certain things, but there will always come a time when their mask falls. And you may see it now and again, and you see it again watching it happen with other people, but you think, oh no, but it won't happen to me. No, they're spies. They are looking, I wouldn't say waiting for your downfall, but they're not necessarily that upset when the downfall happens, and they're there to report it to others. Oh my gosh, did you see this? Oh my gosh, even though they were the first person on your phone offering you condolences and all of that, they're spies and they have an agenda. And we don't always know what that agenda is, but you need to be aware of the people that are like that in your life. And then we move on to the unpaid extras. The unpaid extras, to be honest, they're not that lethal. There's different types. So there's ones that are just acquaintances, that have always been acquaintances, and to be honest, they don't really care much for you, and vice versa. Like, it's a good time when they're around, but it's not that deep. And then there's the ones that you meet later on in life. Again, like, they're there, they fill a chair. They're there to help in certain circumstances, and they're good to have a very surface-based laugh, chuckle with, but they're not necessarily people that you would tell all to. However, there are moments that you may, because they're there and they don't really care enough about you to necessarily spread anything. But you still have to be careful with how much information you give them, because if it is really juicy, then they will just discuss it harmlessly, but it's not harmless to you. Okay, so that's that, the spies and the unpaid extras. I would rather have an unpaid extra around me than a spy, but a lot of the time there are a lot of hidden spies within the camp, and they need to be dug out. And to be honest, it's hard because they genuinely wear their mask very well. Like, like FBI agents and spies in films, they adapt to the world around them so well you would never know. That's the whole point. They're your best friend, they're your lover, they're everything. And again, it can happen with your partner, but we're not talking about that, we're talking about friends. Same-sex friendship, or not even just same-sex friendship groups, friends, platonic friends. And they just do it so well because it's their job. And sometimes they get so lost in it that they forget that they're actually there for a reason, until that reason presents itself. So you have to be careful. And, getting older, at this point, at 38, I genuinely don't know if I'm going to adopt any more friends. I mean, I'm not that old. I probably will. Like, through marriage and me working on different projects. Yeah, I will. But I don't know how deep those friendships will be, because I definitely have my core and the people that I trust. And I don't think you need more than a couple people that you genuinely, like, that you trust and are there. Yes, you can have, and this is not me telling you that you should only have one or two friends, or that you should have 20 friends, like each to their own. But you don't need multiple people around you for you to feel like, oh my gosh, I have friends. Because a lot of those people, like one of my sisters, her friendship group is huge. And I always said to her, and I love her friends, and I think they're all fun. But I said to her, when you get older, that will trickle away. And she was like, nah. And as she has got older, she now has her core, like 2, 3. And that's not to say that she's not friends with anyone else, but when it comes to the trust and, she's homed in. And you also just have to recognize what people are in your life for. You may have multiple friends, but they are for multiple different reasons. Like, you have a friend that enjoys the things that you do, go into exhibitions, I don't know, likes to do fun things, and you know that when they're there, you're having a good time and you want them there because they bring that energy. Then there's the friend that you need that's more of a serious friend, that's more logical, that can kind of eliminate the emotional for a minute and talk to. And then you have, a friend that you connect with on a spiritual level, like I have my sisters in Christ. You have that, and that's not to say that they don't embody other aspects, but that is what they are. And then there's just so many different reasons for different people. And I think the problem that I had in my earlier days with friends was that I expected one or two people to be all of those things, and they expected me to be all of those things, and we were all of those things, but we couldn't sustain that, because that's not reality. I cannot be the fun one, the logical one, the trusting one, all at once with one person all the time. Or with more than one person all the time. Like, my best friend, we like the same things. We have very similar personalities. So I can go out with her because we have the same temperament. I do fun stuff with her because we like the same things. She can trust me. I can trust her. We can talk about deep things. I can be all of those things to her, because she is all of those things to me. But that doesn't mean that is the case for everyone. And I know that there's people that do have that best friend that is all of those things, as it should be. But when you kind of look at how many friends you have around you, like you've got like 10 friends and you expect every one of those 10 friends to be all of those things, it doesn't work like that. And it's draining. If all of those 10 people are all of those things to you, and then you are all of those things to 10 other people, do you know how much oh my gosh, that's giving me a headache. Absolutely not. I can only give so much without damaging me. Like, and even that friend that you have that you know that you can always run to because when something goes wrong, and they'll offer you comfort and support, that friend needs a hug, because it is draining to be that friend. And yes, that friend does it well, and that's fantastic. But if that friend is that friend to more than one person or more than two people, they need a hug, and they need to be told that it's okay. And we also need to be aware of how much we are dumping on one person, regardless of whether it's your friend or not. You should be thinking about your friend as well. Um, but yeah, I think friendships, it's always been a hard topic for me because I haven't always felt like I've had true friends, and I've always felt like I've been a true friend. But I also have to look at my version of that and what that looks like, and also know that just because I think I've been a good friend doesn't mean that the friends that have received that feel the same way. And I would have to take that and take responsibility and take accountability and learn from that. But I just think it's really important to cover this because there's so many things that I have seen on TikTok alone of people like that have been friends for years. This is my best friend. And then like something happens, like you dressed up for their birthday and then they condemn you and they call you out, and then you realize, oh, you hate me. Or, you know, something happens, you fall out, and then next thing you know, everyone knows your business. I don't care if you were a true friend and that person was a true friend for you. I don't care what's happened, because if that's the case, then whatever has happened shouldn't be something like she slept with my husband or she hit my mum. It should never be that drastic because we were true friends. You fell out because, I don't know, you started to change. You just didn't like the person she was changing into, for example. There was a few things that was a bit sketchy, you didn't really agree with, you tried to talk about it, didn't happen, she got a bit defensive, so you're like, you know what, you're not for me anymore. It happens. That does not then mean that you then go and tell everybody, well, did you know that she's going through this? Did you know that this happened? Oh my God, this happened. You were never a friend, and it's never okay. And even if that friend has done you dirty, you just walk away. And I know it's easier said than done, but honestly, I think one of my skills in life is wiping my hands with people. And that's not to say that as a Christ follower, I know that I have to forgive and love and give people chances and grace. Totally get that. But if you continue to do me dirty and you're disturbing my peace and affecting my life, no problem. I will wipe my hands clean. I will walk away. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to tell you about yourself, because vengeance is not mine. I'm done. And I think more people need to take that attitude, because I think when you give people that the energy and the attention that they're so desperately craving for, it feeds them. It feeds their flesh so well. It's the same for like partners. When you break up with someone, I understand that they may have hurt you, but just walk away from them and be done with it and deal with the pain away from them. But so yeah. And at this point I'm rambling, but it's so important to understand what a friend is and understand what a friend means to you, and how you then show up for that friend. And to also recognize that we all are different and we all have different interpretations, and sometimes you just need to communicate to understand someone more, because it's not always negative. It's not always, this person is this. It's just, this person is not me. So what I see, how I see it, it could be completely different for someone else. And also know that not everyone in your life needs to be everything to you. You have friends that from experience, from years of experience, how they best serve you and how you best serve them. And if that works, let it work. If it doesn't, then break it off respectfully. But yeah, that's it from me.